What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors. Sean Hammond. I don't know about you, but football season kind of snuck up on me, man.
We're back. It's here. I was at Halas Hall today for the first time in like 40 days. That was weird.
I don't know. I don't know if it's post pandemic and them now doing training camp at Halas Hall, but like it used to be a big thing, right? You'd get to report day. All the guys would show up. It would be an all day event where you'd have guys start funneling at like 9 o'clock down in Bourbonnais, 9 a.m. And they'd be there and you'd still be kind of hanging around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not quite the same. It just kind of sneaks up on you now.
Yeah, you don't really get those photos and those videos of guys walking in with their TVs or whatever else they're bringing into the dorms because unfortunately, or I guess fortunately from their
Oh,
perspective, they're living at home, you know.
absolutely. Absolutely. They are enjoying. I mean, I can remember, those guys used to complain about dorm life. And come on. I mean, it's fun when you're 18, 19 years old. I mean, think about it, Sean. Could you imagine being 31 years old and being in a
When you're
dorm room?
a grown man and you're making millions of dollars, you do not want to go live in a dorm for a month.
Charles Tillman used to take tinfoil and completely black out his window in his dorm room.
So
And that just,
nobody could see in or
no, just so it would be dark and it wasn't an ideal setup. I don't think like it worked at that time, but with the way like the NFL has evolved, the renovation that at Halas Hall probably came to a very welcome group of guys up there.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes all the sense in the world when you have a facility that you spent like I forget what it was, $200 million, whatever, renovating it, and
I
you
mean,
got the world class weight room and the
it's
locker
awesome.
room. It's one of the best facilities in the NFL right now, and I know these teams are always one upping each other. Jacksonville just opened a new facility down there within the last couple of days, so I'm sure that's probably taking the mantle of the nicest one in the league now, but. It makes sense to have training camp up there where the players are comfortable. You can all live at home, and you got this world class facility.
My last time ever, I guess, regularly being around Halas Hall on a somewhat regular basis was 2017, and construction was ongoing at that time. And you could tell it was going to be a nice facility. But what they've been able to do there, and in terms of like we were just saying, like the ability for players to come home or like go home at the end of training camp to their own bed, like it seems so foreign to me now that used to be, those guys would be gone for a week at a time until they had a day off. I'm not even sure how many teams are still doing that, but that's got to be a big perk for these guys, you would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams don't do that anymore, and they're not. You're seeing that get phased out more and more as years go by, and these teams build these multi-million-dollar facilities, and yeah, it's kind of a thing of the past. You don't. I get it from like a bonding sense when you put your team in one place and there's no distractions, but this is 6 weeks long. You don't need 6 weeks of dorm life to bond as teammates.
No, and anyone who spent time in Bourbonnais, whether you were a reporter or a fan who maybe stayed overnight in Bourbonnais and went out to a local watering hole, it was rather routine to run into a few players, a couple coaches every once in a while, but usually players more than the coaches over having a drink and being out sometimes a little later than they should be. So that's just another thing where it's in control. Kind of miss it. Like it was a great way to get to know guys, and as a reporter, that is something that the access has changed, right? But there some good times and some definitely some positives to being at Halas Hall, Sean. But you were up there for the first time today, and there wasn't honestly there are sometimes you get to the first day of training camp and you have your talk with your general manager and your head coach, and they hit you with several bombshells. That didn't happen today.
No, there wasn't any super unexpected news. There was a little surprise earlier in the week, Sunday night, when Chase Claypool went on the PUP list, physically unable to perform list. We saw that he was sitting out during OTAs in the spring, and so that was always a possibility. But then the Bears went around and 24 hours later they came back and put him on the active roster. So we still don't really know what all that was about. It's a little odd. I they wouldn't put him on that list for no reason. I guess we'll kind of have to see when they come back on Wednesday. Wednesday's their first day in practice. They're not padded yet. They're just out there and basically running around in shorts. And we'll see who's practicing and who's not. Darnell Mooney was also cleared, which is a good sign. That was pretty much expected. We had seen clips of him working out with Justin in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and so it looked like he was basically back to full health, and it appears that that's going to be the case. But the Bears might take it slow with some of these guys who are coming off of injuries. Eddie Jackson's not somebody I expect them to take it slow with. He was cleared in the spring, and he's going to be good to go from the get-go here.
So let's start with Chase Claypool there, because that's the, I guess, the biggest news, certainly the strangest news over the last 48 hours or so. As you were saying, Sunday he goes on the PUP list, and it was surprising to begin with just because it was so close to the start of training camp. Like usually that's something that you expect to hear like on the day of, like Ryan Poles gets up there, hey, Chase Claypool is going to start, camp on PUP list, blah, blah, blah. But like, okay, so they did it 2 days in advance. You think they wanted to get out in front of it, and then the next day he comes off the PUP list, and you're like, wait, what? Like, and they didn't give an answer outside of saying that, oh, everything's fine. I did you mention there about Justin's comments after?
I didn't, but yeah. So Poles and Eberflus talk, and we all know how Matt Eberflus likes to not say much when it comes to injuries, and of course the front he and the front office are going to do that. And then they wrap up. They say Chase Claypool, oh, he's good to practice, no issues there. And then Justin Fields comes out to the podium and somewhere in there in his answer to a question about Chase, mentioned that Chase was working out with them in Florida until his knee started bothering him or something like that. And all of that is to say that I don't think the Bears did that for no reason. I don't think this is nothing. It could be nothing, but I don't know. It's a weird thing to do if the guy's not dealing with something, even if it is a minor injury. But it's really odd, Kyle.
It's very strange, and it's not nothing. Like, whether it has to do with the knee or not remains to be seen.
All spring long, they were calling it a soft, whatever he was dealing with during OTAs, they were calling it a soft tissue injury. And that's all they said. There was no mention of a knee. And Justin came out today and slipped that in there. And I found that a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
It's also, we're getting it secondhand from Justin. Not
yeah, and exactly. And the other thing there is, like I was saying, like they could be completely separate things. Like he could have tweaked his knee, training down in Florida, and it could have been something else that he was put on the PUP list for. I mean, we don't know exactly. So, but it certainly is concerning and a bit odd. But of course, you can read Sean's story on the Chase Claypool news, on the Darnell Mooney news at shawlocal.com. You'll find all of Sean's content there throughout the season, along with our new columnist here at shawlocal.com, Mark Silverman, from ESPN 1000. You know him very well from Waddle and Sylvie from 2 to 6 p.m. Weekdays over there on ESPN. ESPN 1000, the new home of the Chicago Bears on game day. Sylvie will be doing pregame and halftime over there on radio, and then you can find his thoughts about the Bears each week at shawlocal.com. I see a question asking about Hub. Sean, it's something we do have to address. I know we have a lot of people who've been dropping into my DMs on Twitter asking when the show's coming back, what's going on. I can't, guys, I can't get into specifics. I always, it's interesting to be on this side of it because you hear athletes talk about like there's a business side, and I guess that's really all I can say about it. We wish Hub the best. It was a pleasure working with him over the years. I mean, he's he's done a lot for me in my career. And I'm truly appreciative of that, Sean. I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, he's done a lot for me too, and we both have enjoyed working with him over the years. And we wish him the best.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, so let's dive in. We've already talked about Claypool. How about Darnell Mooney? Like, what did you get a sense from him that he's ready to be number two to DJ Moore, or is he a guy that's in a contract year that you expect to really be fighting for every rep he can get?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear from Darnell Mooney. He did not speak today. I imagine he's going to speak to the media pretty soon in the next couple of days here, and um, we haven't gotten to speak to him since his injury. And we saw him at the facility a couple of days late last season. Obviously, he's always a great guy to see. He's always got a smile on his face. But yeah, I mean, I I get the sense that Darnell Mooney is going to have no issues with being the quote unquote number two in this offense because he just wants to win football games. I really get that sense from Mooney. It's never really been about the yards or the statistics. With him, he just wants to win football games, and we've seen him. He's a really good teammate, and his teammates really like him. And I think he and DJ Moore are going to have a really good relationship as they get to know each other more. And DJ is probably going to be the number one in this offense, but you know what? The guy's earned it, and you bring in a talent like that, I think it's only going to raise the level for everybody. And if this passing offense is much improved because of a DJ Moore, that means Darnell Mooney is going to get more opportunities. If defenses are coming, trying to bottle up DJ Moore, that's going to give Darnell Mooney more chances.
I think I phrased the question the wrong way because I have no doubt like Darnell is not that type of guy that, I think the more interesting thing and the way I would frame that more is the fact that it's just not Darnell Mooney that's in a contract year. You're also looking at Chase Claypool, who's in a contract year, right? I mean, these guys want to get paid. I mean, wide receiver is certainly a position that you can do so, but you do have an extra guy in this offense that is probably going to eat up at least 100 targets, probably more than that. I mean, 120 targets is certainly reasonable. 130 targets that wasn't there last year, and you got two young guys that are looking to get paid. And I'm very interested to see how that plays out.
Well, yeah, and it's great that you bring up Claypool in this conversation too, because you're right. They're both in contract years, and we talk about we've talked a lot over the last months about Claypool's struggles late last year after the trade, and he didn't really produce a whole lot. Certainly not for what you traded away for him, and he's got one more year on this deal. And if there was ever motivation to have a big season, this is it right here. I mean, he's got the opportunity to get paid next offseason, whether that's by the Bears or by somebody else. And he has to have a really big year, to justify the big money that I'm sure he's hoping to get. He's got the tools. He's, a freak athlete in a huge body. We saw what he did his rookie year in Pittsburgh, and he still produced that second year, though not quite to the same level. And if he can have a really good season this year, he's going to set himself up really well. So
he's got to have a fast start. Like Chase Claypool, with the way things have gone here over the last two seasons now, particularly last season. And that's, I mean, again, we can go back to the level of quarterback play in Pittsburgh, him coming over to a new offense in Chicago. And let's face it, like the Bears offense and passing game was a train wreck for a lot of the season.
It was the worst in a decade.
Yeah.
In the NFL.
Yeah. And even with some modest improvements, it still wasn't good. So like, it's hard to take too much away from, or to put too much on Chase Claypool there, but there was a large enough sample size that there should have been more production, or at least, like you talk about the eye test, like he failed the eye test. When he was on the field, he did nothing to stand out. And I think he has to have a fast start here. Otherwise, there are a lot of competitions, unlike last year, for targets, and he could get pushed out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and remember the timing of all this too. I mean, Darnell Mooney got hurt the last game in November at the Jets in New Jersey, and the next week you say, okay, this is Chase Claypool's got to step up. This is his opportunity. And I think he had 4 or 5 catches in the first half, and then hurt his knee late in that second quarter. And it was just awful timing for a guy who, that was a big opportunity to make an impression on Bears fans, and it wasn't meant to be. And then he missed the next 2 weeks, and Justin missed some time, and everything, went haywire, and you're sitting there with 3 wins at the end of the season. So yeah, this is a big year for Chase Claypool, and you wonder how that's all going to work when you throw in a DJ Moore. On paper, Chase Claypool is the third receiver. Unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't think you expect like insane numbers from your number 3 receiver, Kyle.
No, absolutely not. But I mean, that's what. Do you view him as a number 3 receiver though? I don't want to lower expectations for him just because you brought in DJ Moore. You gave up a second round pick for Chase Claypool that ended up being essentially a first round pick, the number 32 pick. And he is a guy that I personally had really high expectations for coming into the league. A lot of scouts did. A lot of people thought he could be a first round draft pick. And then he comes out and he has a really good rookie season in Pittsburgh, and it's gone away since. So the question is, has it been the play around him, or is it Chase Claypool? Are we just not seeing the progression that we expected to see out of him? Is that something physically? Is that something on the mental side? I don't know, but he needs to have a good season, and he needs to get off to a quick start, bottom line.
That's why I think it starts right now. And that's why the pup thing is a little bit of a concern. And,
Yeah.
Maybe he's going to be a little bit limited here these early days in training camp. I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow on Wednesday. But, there's you're running out of time to make excuses. And so, if he's limited throughout training camp, that's just going to be another reason to sort of kick the can down the road a little bit. And then you're talking halfway through the season before you get a read on it. And, you need this guy to be there during training camp so he can get on the same page with Justin and DJ and Darnell. And you want all 3 of those guys working together. Whether whoever's number 1, 2, or 3, you just want those 3 receivers out there on the field with Justin Fields as much as possible during training camp so that they can figure out what this is going to look like and hit the ground running in week 1.
And you say during training camp, I want to say there's a difference between training camp when we get to the preseason games too. I don't mind if the Bears are pretty conservative when it comes to Chase Claypool's snaps or any starter snaps when it comes to the preseason. I'm not saying you sit everyone out like we saw with Matt Nagy and all that fun. But what I'm saying is like the reps that come in practice, those guys being able to talk to each other every day here in August, as we get into August, that's what's going to be really important. A few snaps during a game isn't going to do much. But yeah, you're right, Sean. I mean, he needs to be out there practicing each day.
We're talking about practice, Kyle. That's yes, I'm glad you said that because the preseason games don't matter. You're going out there for a series. If he doesn't catch a ball, so what? I'm talking about, the 2 hours that you're on the football field in pads, not for another week here, they'll be in pads, but when they are, out there playing real football with your teammates, that's when he needs to be on the field.
And communicating. I mean,
yeah.
That's a lot of this comes down to communication when it comes to building your offense going into the season.
And we should, as I say that about the pads, I should preface that too. Like a lot of these guys say, it doesn't really feel like it truly begins till they put the pads on. So yeah, some of these guys might have a little bit of a slow start here. Some of these guys might be limited. There's probably going to be other guys that they neglected to tell us about today that might be starting a little bit slow. And really, you want to see these guys out there when they're in full pads and these practices get real.
Mike Johnson checking in. Hi, guys. Welcome back. Missed you, Mike. It's great to have you joining us.
We missed you guys too.
Yeah. I will say it was nice to take some time off and recharge this summer. But it's great to be back talking football. If you are listening to this in the podcast form, which this live stream is available on podcast or in podcast form, you can go to pretty much anywhere you get your podcast nowadays and find it. But if you're listening in podcast form, you want to join us live during the preseason or during training camp here. Our schedule is going to be a little more hectic because you're dealing with odd off days. Once the Bears get into the season, we'll be with you twice a week in the mornings, probably Mondays and Fridays, unless the Bears have, maybe a Monday night game, scheduling sometime with Sean traveling from a home game or away game, but we'll do our best to keep that consistent. But for now, bear with us. But yeah, you can join us live on YouTube. You can also join us on all of Shaw Locals, our print newspapers Facebook pages, whether that's the Daily Chronicle in DeKalb, the Northwest Herald serving McHenry County, the Herald News covering Will County, and Joliet, My Suburban Life out in Cook and DuPage counties. Anywhere in the suburbs, you go to our Facebook page, that's there. And anywhere you go, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up. If you are on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. We appreciate it. It helps people find the show. And really, we're doing this for you guys. We like talking football. I like having a forum to talk football, and we like interacting with you guys. So jump into the comments, jump onto the live stream if you know we're on, throw something our way. We enjoy talking with you guys. But Sean, so let's keep going here for another few minutes before we sign off for this episode. And people asked about, I believe it was Adam Hogue, was the one that pulled the gun on asking about whether Justin Fields would be interested in doing quarterback, the Netflix show. And I wasn't surprised to hear him say no, but I was disappointed.
Yeah, when that show came out a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, it was about 10 days ago or so, watching that and seeing all the access that they got for that show, the interviews and the unique angles from the game footage and practice stuff. One of my first thoughts was, man, Justin Fields would be a great guy to do this on next year because of the storylines coming off a tough season, trying to build something from the ground up here in Chicago. We know that he did a show in high school that at one point it was on Netflix. I believe it's no longer on Netflix, where they followed some of the top high school prospects.
Did you watch that? I didn't watch it, but I remember seeing it. I never watched it though.
I didn't watch it at the time, but when they drafted Justin, I did go back and watch a lot of that. I had to find it on some random site because I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. But it was really cool to go back and watch. I would recommend anybody, if they want to do a deep dive on Justin, go back and watch that show if you haven't already. You learn a lot about him and his family and growing up in Georgia. And it's just crazy how much this guy's been in the spotlight since he was a kid. I mean, that's no small thing to be on a Netflix show when you're 18-year-old high school senior.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And you don't watch a lot of TV or movies. I mean, I've given you plenty of crap about that over the years, and we'll continue to do so because, like, have you seen here? I'm just randomly.
Don't test me, Kyle.
Have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yes, I did see that one because our good friend Joe Stevenson made me watch it, gave me the DVD, and made me bring it home.
Like if we put up a list of like the Turner Classic, like top 100, I bet you've seen less than 5 of them. But anyway,
man,
so
you
gave your time to Netflix's quarterback series. I haven't watched it. I have watched a fair amount of the F1 series that they do, and I'm like halfway through Full Swing, the golf version.
Oh yeah, okay.
Both fantastic. So I have to assume the quarterback one is pretty good as well.
Yeah, I haven't quite finished it, but I've watched a lot of it. It is really good. I really like seeing the behind the scenes stuff, especially obviously they focus a lot on Patrick Mahomes because the storyline works out well. They followed him all season. He won the Super Bowl. Of course, you're going to follow Patrick Mahomes a lot, but I love seeing the stuff he does off the field with his personal trainer. And you learn a little bit about what these guys go through off the field in terms of like, the extra work they got to do. And they talked about like, Patrick Mahomes does this extra work to contort his body for those off-platform throws. And, you don't think about that when you're just watching a football game. And, that's something that he trains. And I'm sure that's something that numerous quarterbacks across the league train. And Justin, he's a guy who played baseball too. He's used to throwing from shortstop and doing those weird angles. And that's something that could help him on the football field. But I would definitely recommend the show for people. I'm a little bummed that Justin doesn't want to do it. Yeah, he basically said he's not going to do it. He didn't say that he told them no yet. He said, I don't think I'm going to do it.
Yeah, he was being the proper politician with the answer there. But either that or he was given that answer because he was letting the agents do the work to see if they can get a little more money for season 3 or something.
But he didn't he didn't rule it out for the future. It sounds like he would be interested in doing that another time. I think it's more of the distraction, especially when you're a team that won 3 football games. You can't really afford to have distractions when we are trying to turn this thing around. And we also know how the Bears feel about Hard Knocks and these shows that come in, and you got a camera crew running around your facility. The Bears don't want any part of that.
I
And
was a little surprised that there were 3 teams that would allow camera crews to follow around their quarterback.
I'm surprised by that too. I think the fact that it's Omaha Productions running this thing with Peyton
Yeah,
Manning, I think
yeah,
that
that
has a lot
helps.
of sway in the industry. Um, but I'm also surprised. I'm really curious to see who they wind up getting, because they intentionally picked 3 quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota for season 1. They intentionally picked quarterbacks in very different stages of their careers. And I'm curious to see, what 3 names they come up with this year.
Yeah, it does seem like it's been pretty successful. So I don't know if because I had never even heard about it until it came out. You know what I mean? Like, so I wonder if it's successful enough that now it's going to become a thing where like we know who's getting followed around each season, stuff like that. Um, there was something I wanted to ask you that I lost my train of thought there, John. Damn it! Now we're officially back in the podcast when I lose my thought live on air when we're
We're
doing this.
rolling. We're
I
rolling. We're
know.
doing it live.
Well, I guess I wanted to say was with Patrick Mahomes, like, do they show like him? Like, how is that like inside the facility? Like, are they showing him like working against like breaking down any film against defenses or what?
I haven't seen any. Well, you know what? There's an episode halfway through where they talk about, basically all the stuff they got to know in their heads, but they're more focused on like play calls, and they're not necessarily sitting down and watching film with them. But there is a little bit of that midway through. There are some clips from practice. It's mostly like, you know, uh, talking in between plays type stuff. They might show him run a play, but obviously they crop it very close to the quarterback. You don't see what else is going on. But a lot of the really interesting stuff happens outside the facility. They're talking to these guys' families, and Patrick Mahomes' wife is on there quite a bit, and they're talking about just uh, you know life as an NFL quarterback, not just for the quarterback, but for his family as well. And all the stuff that they do outside of the facility is really quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, I do enjoy shows anytime anytime you can pull back the curtain a little bit and remind people that these guys are human beings.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good for the game. It's good for society to me because there's too often that people forget. Like, I mean, we listen. Anyone who's been around sports, we know what a bad fan can be. So and it gets worse as you get up to the professional levels because all you're doing is seeing these guys on TV. I mean, Sean, like we've been in locker rooms, like we've seen instances guys been late because family issue at home that morning and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And these are real guys, so it's cool that they've been able to pull the curtain back like that a little bit.
Yeah. You got to remember that these guys are people. DJ Moore said something great. Somebody asked him, do you see a speed specialist in the off season or whatever? And DJ, who just had a baby a couple of weeks ago, was like, nah, man, I'm just being a dad. I'm just being a dad watching movies, eating popcorn.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And I wish more guys would just be like okay with saying that. And
Yeah.
shows like that will help that. So that's cool to see. Um, you know, quickly before we get out of here, and I do want to try and get out of here pretty soon, Sean. But one of the questions I think we got a lot during the off season from viewers and listeners was about edge rusher. And here we are at the start of training camp. The Bears have not made any additions. And Ryan Poles, and listen, I didn't expect him, as no GM would, to be like, yeah, we're actively looking at the market, but he gave about as wishy-washy of an answer as you possibly could get about, are you still looking to add to this roster?
Yeah, and I think the answer is an obvious yes. Of course, he's been saying since the moment the draft ended that is a position of need, and they couldn't address everything in one off season. Clearly, that's their weakest position on the edge. They're gonna need somebody to rush the passer. There are options out there. Now, I'm not saying that they're gonna necessarily sign somebody. I think they're going to keep their options open. If they should be in conversation with all these free agent edge rushers. Whether they wind up signing one, I don't know. If there's a guy who's available on the trade market, they should absolutely be making a call. Whether they seal the deal, I don't know. You could just say we got 2 first round picks next year. Let's just play this season with what we got and address it next off season. But I think there's a lot of guys out there who you could get on 1 year deals.
I don't think you can afford to sit there and play that game at this point. Like,
I don't
I,
know why you would when you have $30 million in cap space.
well, that's yeah. I mean, that's certainly what. Yeah, that's very true. I didn't even think about that, but it's. I'm not saying that the honeymoon period is over quite yet, but this is a team that I expect to be in the playoff hunt come December. And I'm not saying that this is a team that can win 11 or 12 games, but the NFL at 9-8 gets you in the playoffs, and I think they're going to be right around that 7 to 10 win mark. And considering it's a very winnable division, even if there's an edge rusher that you think can help you, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you absolutely should be exploring that.
Yeah, you look at the list right now of edge rushers available: Jadeveon Clowney, Yannick Ngakoue, Trey Flowers, Kyle Van Noy, Justin Houston, who's a guy that we talked about a lot, back in March, Kyle, as somebody who, you would think is probably going to sign a 1 year deal, but was still productive last year and would fit your system. A guy who played for Matt Eberflus in Indianapolis. The question would come down to, obviously, I think Justin Houston wants to play for a team that's going to have a shot at winning the Super Bowl. And I don't know if that's the Bears, but I think there's players out there who are going to sign 1 year deals, and we're not talking about you know handing out a massive contract to an edge rusher that's gonna pull your salary cap down for a couple of years. We're talking about a 1 year deal for a guy who can produce right here, right now, this season, and then maybe you figure out something else next off season.
Or, you've now seen some in-season trading happening with the
Yeah.
NFL, a few more, or more common than you've seen at the trade deadline in the past, the last couple of years now. So maybe they do take that tack. Maybe it's wait and see what we have with some of these younger guys, and guess what? If we're in contention, then we go out and we make a trade for a Von Miller type trade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't know which teams are going to be out of the hunt by the trade deadline, but you just look at what the Bears did last year in flipping Robert Quinn for a 4th round pick. They got 2 4th round picks next year. The Bears do. If you're in the NFC North hunt and you need an edge rusher, you can probably find somebody for one of those extra 4th round picks. You have the draft capital to do something like that. If you just need a guy who can come in and disrupt the quarterback.
All right, Sean, let's talk expectations. If it's going to be you and I out here, Sylvie will be joining us from time to time throughout the season. But for the most part, it's going to be you and me talking Bears football all season long here. We will have some guests along the way. But let's put our expectations out there right now, right? Let's give listeners going into this where we think this team is. And I kind of got there a little bit with saying that I think this is a team that can win 7 to 10 games. I'll dive into that more, but first off, where are you at with them?
Yeah, I think that's a great range. I think that's sort of where this team should be. You look at the pieces that they've added. This offense has to be better than last year, and I think it will, particularly the passing game I'm talking about. Obviously, they led the league in rushing last year. That's great, but you don't want Justin Fields running around for 1,000 yards because that's just going to lead to more chances to get hit. You bring in DJ Moore, you really improve that offensive line. They got if Darnell Wright is as the Bears think he's going to be, this could be a really, really talented offensive line. Throw in Nate Davis at the guard spot, and you're feeling good about your starting five.
There's There's a lot of
What's that?
ifs. There's a lot of
There's a
ifs.
lot of ifs,
There's
and
a
there
lot of
always
ifs with the
is.
off. Yeah, of course, particularly for a team that's coming off a 3-win season. But the difference between now and the last couple of years is I actually feel like there's potential answers. I'm not saying all of them are going to hit, but I think there's enough upside here. And obviously, number one, Justin Fields. Like we've reached the point now. You can make excuses last year, and make excuses sounds like a too harsh of a term because I was very pleased with how I felt about Justin Fields' progression last year. But if that progression doesn't continue in the passing game this year and take a fairly significant step forward, then I do think there's cause for concern, right, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think nobody is under more pressure this season than Luke Getzey to figure this out. Not pressure in the sense that like his job's at stake, but I'm just saying like he's got to figure out. They got the pieces. He's the one in charge of the offense. He's got to figure out how all these guys fit together. And yeah, a lot of that is on the players too. That's on Justin Fields. That's on these receivers. There's a lot of moving parts in an NFL offense, and it's you can't just put the pieces together and expect it to work without some growing pains. And there might be that early in the season, as the Bears try to figure out what exactly this passing attack is going to look like. I think 7 to 10 wins is a good range. I feel like, I have to, do a deep dive in the schedule again. I'm feeling like 8 or 9 wins is kind of where I'm leaning. I will say they do have a pretty favorable schedule on paper.
Famous last words right
That
there.
always changes when we get to week 1, week 2, and we're like, wow, like last year with the Denver Broncos, we're like, oh yeah, they'll be good. Oh, wait a second, how did that go?
Yeah, no, Russ Wilson bad at football suddenly.
So these things change once we actually see these teams on the field. But there's reason to be optimistic. You're playing all these teams that also finished last in their division. And then the NFC North isn't looking particularly strong. Those are all winnable games. You got to think the Bears are going to be in just about every game.
Yeah,
They were in practically every game last year. Not every game, but they were in a lot of games.
They were, yeah. I mean, they're going to win a few of those games. Like I think most likely they are a perfectly mediocre NFL football team that you would expect run of the mill, 8 or 9 wins. I do think, and this isn't really going out on a limb because a lot of people feel this way, particularly if you're a Bears fan. But if Justin Fields does take the next step that I feel is coming, I don't know if it's going to happen all at once. It may take until November until it clicks. But I think at some point this year, the light bulb is going to go on for Justin Fields. And if that goes on in September and not November, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then I think you can start pushing that 10-win mark, maybe even 11 wins.
Kyle, we see it every year. It was the Jaguars last year. There's always a worst to first team. It seems like there's always a worst to first team in one division every year. Can that be the Bears? I don't know. You look at. I'm going to name the teams that finished last in their division, Kyle, and you're going to tell me who's going to finish first. Okay.
Okay.
We got the Jets in the AFC East. We got the Browns, the Texans, the Broncos. Those are your 4 last place AFC teams.
Okay.
Then we got the Commanders, the Bears, the Falcons, and the Cardinals. If I'm a betting man, which I'm not, I would circle 2 teams. I think I'm literally just like doing this on the fly, and I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into this. I'd circle the Jets in the AFC East, which of course is a really tough division. But I think they were a respectable team last year. Now you add Aaron Rodgers in there. Who knows how that's going to go? And honestly, I think you'd circle the Bears.
I just don't want to.
I think you'd circle the Bears too, just because of the division.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the Bears, I think, are absolutely in that discussion. Yeah. The Jets, yeah, I would say so. Did you see the Aaron Rodgers promo pic release of him in a Jets uniform yesterday?
Yeah, I did.
And people photoshopping it. If you haven't seen that, just like Google Aaron Rodgers Jets uniform, and it's pretty hilarious. Everything because it literally looked like the knockoff one you would buy from Spirit Halloween That's what it looked like he was wearing. It was great. So people photoshopping that all across the internet yesterday made me very happy. But all right, Sean, let's get out of here, man. You got 4 straight days of practice
4
at
days of
Halas
practice
Hall.
coming up,
Yeah, it's
guys. Hit me
gonna
up
be
on Twitter, Instagram. You know where to find me.
yeah. Follow Sean on Twitter
And
at
Threads now.
Oh yes, and Threads. Do we got a TikTok for you yet?
Not yet. No, I kind of missed the TikTok train. Let me know if you want me to make a TikTok, guys. Shoot me a message.
Well, yeah, you can follow Sean on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. You can find me on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. Go find us, all of our content at Bears_Insider. Once again, if you're on YouTube or if you're just listening to the podcast, go find this on YouTube for us. Subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. And with that, go to shawlocal.com. You'll find all of our content each day up there as Sean is out at Halas Hall. We will be back with you next Tuesday, August 1st at 4 p.m. And after that, we'll try and keep you updated. As I said at the beginning of the show, things get a little weird as we go through the preseason. But thank you, everyone who joined us. For Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. It was great to be back talking football with you guys. We'll be back with you next Tuesday. So long, everyone.